Redditors with real-life butterfly effect stories. What happened and what was the series of events and outcomes? My mother wore heels to work and slipped on the carpeted steps, resulting in a broken high heel and a broken leg. While she was home recovering, she somehow developed allergies that led to her needing an inhaler. The inhaler interfered with her birth control, and now I have a brother 13 years younger than me. Mother confirmed that it was the penicillin that she was prescribed. Nearly every single friend I have in college is because one day in my Gen Ed health class we had to pick a seat that would become our seat for the semester. When I came in there weren't too many seats left, and the people I sat next to ended up becoming my best friends and introduced me to all of my other friends in one way or another. I am alive because my aunt was born. My grandfather was conscripted into the Romanian army as a medic, and his unit was one of the many acting as a defensive barrier, covering the Nazi supply lines to Stalingrad. She was born, and he was called back to Bucharest from the front. While he was on leave, the Russians launched Operation Uranus, which decimated the Axis forces. He received word that his unit had been completely destroyed. He was never reassigned, and in 1948, my mother was born. I am also alive because a bunch of Romanian cows got sick. My other grandfather was a pharmacist, back when that meant actually making medicines. He was also a Jew. The town he lived in was largely agrarian, and their cow herds came down with some illness that was killing them. He whipped something up that cured them. The townspeople were very grateful to him, so grateful that when the chief of police heard that the Nazis were coming to town to take inventory of who lived there, he came to my grandfather's house with some train tickets for him and his wife. They escaped the Nazis and never got caught. My father was born at the end of 1945. I guess this is the opposite of the butterfly effect, really. Rather than one small action blowing up into a much more important chain of events, two hugely improbable events are eventually lead to my birth and obviously my extended family as well. And now, I run ads on the internet. High school, I didn't get into the app history class wanted, changed up my schedule, including a different gym class. Without everyone I knew, I was heartbroken. I really wanted to teach, and without an app class senior year, I was screwed. Made a new friend in gym class, who was wearing a volunteer firefighter shirt. He had just joined. Seemed interesting, and he invited me to check it out. They paid for me to get my EMT. Fell in love with healthcare. Fast forward quite a while, and I am a nurse and precept students and new nurses, teaching them how to survive in the I also do public outreach and injury prevention, and I love it. Glad I missed out on my class. So my then girlfriend, now wife, were planning on going away traveling for a very long time, several years. The night before we left I was just packing my things, and at the last minute I decided to include some camera stuff. I had an SLR that I didn't really use too much. I very nearly didn't bring it because it was big and space was at a premium. While we were away, one of the things we did was work in a wildlife rehab center. At the time we were there it was very quiet, very few baby kangaroos to look after, but we had to be ready as that could change in an instant. Like in one day 3 could come in and boom, full-time job. I used this spare time to really get to grips with the camera and learn about photography in general. Now I am a wildlife cameraman. Had I decided to leave the camera I never would be doing what I am doing, which is sitting in a freezing cold shed for hours at a time waiting for some animals to do something that they're not doing. I was going out to grab pizza and a case of beer for me and my roommate, but he texted me that he had a stomach thing, so I walked to a restaurant and ordered dinner at the bar and met a girl there, and now we are married and have 2 kids because my roommate had diarrhea. If my biological mom hadn't asked her parents to watch me for a couple hours and then left town, I wouldn't have had the incredible and privileged life that I was given through adoption. My younger half-brothers were raised by our biological mom and they are a total freaking mess. I am more of a mom to them than their actual mom, and I would have been an absolute wreck also if she kept me. Instead I was given an amazing private education, all the sports and musical adventures, and most important a healthy, loving home with two parents who taught me that just because you share blood doesn't mean you love, and just because you didn't give birth to a child doesn't mean you can be their parent. The wife and I were having dinner in Hawaii one night on vacation. As we were getting up to leave, I noticed she hadn't finished her beer. I told her she should finish the beer since we paid some ridiculous price for it. Fast forward 30 seconds and we leave the restaurant and are walking the 3 blocks back to the hotel. About 50 feet in front of us as we're walking down the sidewalk on the left side of the road. A car comes flying out of a side street from the right and crosses through the street, hops the sidewalk in front of us, and smashes into a wall. If she didn't finish her beer, we would have been smoked by the car and most likely squished between the car and the wall. We always finish our beer now. I was walking to school and got distracted by a hedgehog that ran in a bush next to me. Then a big-ass tree branch fell in front of me. Would have crushed me if I did not get distracted by a spiky little mouse scurrying in the bushes. I gave him a dead cricket the next day. He took it and ran off. Godspeed, Spiky Mouse. Pregnant cousin usually takes the bus at around 5:10 p.m. after work. She was about to hop inside the bus but she needed to pee really badly and the commute is about an hour long, so she decided to go to the restroom instead and just catch the next bus. That 5:10 bus ended up falling from a cliff. At the end of 6th grade, my class took a field trip on a whale watch. That night, I saw a commercial for a documentary TV series on whales. Ever since that day, I wanted to grow up and protect whales from being hunted. Today I work in the military specializing in marine preservation. Too long didn't he read? I overdrafted and caused 4 marriages and 5 babies. Longer version. I was just out of high school and new in town with no job. I was living off what savings I had left and my account went below zero without me knowing. I was overdraft charged like 10 times and owed 300 plus. I went down to the bank, spoke with the teller, and she ended up being a lifesaver. She worked with me and got all the charges removed. On top of getting the charges removed, we got to talking about my situation and she said that her son worked at a local restaurant and she would help me get a job. She was a woman of her word and by the end of the week I was working full-time. Fast forward, I meet a cool dude who worked there. We became friends. I introduced him to my sister. They fell in love, got married and had 2 kids. His best friend came into town for the wedding and I introduced him to my roommate at the time. They fell in love, got married and had 2 babies. I also got my best friend a job at the restaurant where he met a girl working there. They fell in love, got married and had a kid. Right before I left I got my roommate a job at the restaurant where he met a customer, fell in love, got married and had a kid. As a bonus, my best friend, who I helped get the job, repaid the favor and got me a job at a different restaurant where I met a girl, fell in love and got married. Received an incredibly high-paying job offer to run our biggest competitor's team. Told my boss, even though I loved my job, but it was more than double what I was making. Boss agreed to a reasonable raise. Still not near the offer. I decided to stay because I genuinely loved my team co-workers, and the money wasn't enough to leave that happy place. In exchange, I had to take up another account that meant a business trip I didn't have in the plans. Went on that trip and met my future husband. Couple of years later, we went on our honeymoon at a new resort in St. Lucia. Ran into someone I knew from homework. Turns out, the team that I'd been given the job offer for had made so much money that they had booked the same resort to celebrate. I sat there and went, wow, life is nuts. Would V ended up there, either way. Got arrested for growing weed, moved back home, got first job I could at IKEA. After working there for over a year, randomly decided to check Craigslist for jobs and saw an opening at a cafe and they were hiring right then, so instinctively went for it. The cafe was connected and owned by one of the most popular brewpubs, beer gardens in the area. They hired me to host their Quickly worked my way up the ranks to eventually bar manager. Met girl of my dreams. We are now married with 2 amazing kids. Opened 2 more restaurants with them and currently assistant director of operations. Overseeing 3 restaurants, 3, 5 and 8 million a year in sales. Love my job. Love my family. Love my life. No idea what I'd be doing if I never got arrested, or never applied for the cafe job. Getting my ears pierced the day after I graduated high school got me where I am today. I worked at McDonald's at the time and was scheduled to work that night. Before my shift, my girlfriend at the time convinced me to get my ears pierced. Well, when I showed up to my shift with these clear ear studs in, my manager gave me an option: either take them out, or go home. Being only 17 and not taking anything seriously, I went home. On my way home, I called the girlfriend's dad, and asked if I could work with him laying tile. He gave me a chance, and I quit McDonald's that day. Worked with him for about a year until the 08-09 recession caused us to run out of work. I got laid off. 4 months later, I landed a job in a new hospital doing admitting in the emergency room. Did that for 2 years before I got my phlebotomy certification. Been doing that for a few years and now I am in my final semester of nursing school. I attribute everything I've done to that day my ex-girlfriend pressured me into getting my ears pierced. Who knows how long I would have stayed at McDonald's. Went to a soccer match on a Thursday night in August 2010, after years of turning down invites from multiple groups of friends. But this time it was for someone's birthday and they gave me a ticket. So I said WTHOK, fell in love with my local team. I had watched soccer in HS in college and of course the World Cup. But this was different. I rekindled friendships from years before through our mutual support of said team. Made new friends. Experienced new things because of friends and team. Drank more than I usually did. In January 2016 I got laid off from a job I had grown to hate after 8 years and a lot of rounds of layoffs. Just waiting for my number to get called. That March I was getting antsy and bored at home because I was trying to save money while still looking for work and decided to get off my couch and go to an off-season supporters group meetup, which I usually do not like to do because I am not good at the social skills, and if I had not been unemployed I know I would not have gone. But that night I met the woman I instantly knew I was going to fall in love with. Got a new job, quit drinking, finally went on a date with her 6 months after meeting her. Figured out I hated the new job, quit that job, moved to her city 35 minutes south in 2017 and have been working odd jobs part-time and doing gig economy stuff. I moved in 6 months later. We had a puppy magically fall into our lives within 3 days of just talking about maybe getting a dog. And it is my first dog ever and I am so happy about it. Got engaged, got married in December and I am so happy about it. She kept telling me Reddit was actually good. I actually signed up. I saw this post. I replied, "Hi, we also just got a kitten." I don't know if this counts, but during the Sri Lankan Civil War my dad and his family were chased out of their home and were forced to seek shelter at his cousin's house a couple towns over. His cousin's only had one neighbor and that neighbor was my mom and her family. They used to meet up at the fence dividing their lawns and talk for months. One of the pictures from their wedding was them at that fence. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.